Welcome to Just Say This, the place to get all the help you need for the birds and bees talks. I'm your host, Amy Lang. Just a quick reminder, this show is for grown-ups because I'll be swearing. There'll be lots of swears, and then I'll also be talking about grown-up sex. I can guarantee that your kids do not want to listen to this, and they really don't want to listen to it with you. You've been warned. Do you have a question for me? Please give me a call. The phone number is 206-926-1522, 206-926-1522, and I will answer on the show. And if you have a funny sex talk story, please call in those as well, 206-926-1522. Thanks. Oh my God, abortion. What the fuck is going on? It's terrifying. What is happening? It's like the religious right has lost their marbles and the world has lost their marbles. I don't understand why, if you're going to be opposed to abortion, which I get, I can get that. I'm not. I never will be. But if you're going to make it so that women can't, control their own destinies and their lives, and you're going to force them to continue pregnancies, rape and incest pregnancies, fetal problem demise pregnancies. It's crazy. Sorry. I'm getting very whiny. Why don't they also say, okay, and then we'll have free preschool and free childcare, and we'll take care of children, and we'll give you money so you can make sure that kids are happy and healthy. I mean, these folks say they're Christians, and I'm not religious, but what the hell? Why aren't they taking care of these families? And I think I talked about my time with the Focus on the Family guy, Rob, who runs the entire Focus on the Family network of podcasts. Maybe I haven't, whatever. I met him. We had a conversation. I got him kicked off the stage at a particular podcasting conference because of his company he works for, or whatever they are, organization. Anyway, one of the things he said that was sort of encouraging is that they're trying to get away from that the focus on abortion and focus on families and elders and kids and things that, it matters. Anyway, I don't know. I just needed to yell. And I'm going to Oklahoma to work on an Air Force base, and they just passed a really just so restrictive. I mean, just so awful in response to the people from Texas who are going there to terminate their pregnancies. Anyway, I'm going there to work for the Air Force, and I'm going to get paid a big chunk of change. So those are your tax dollars doing good. But I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to justify being there. And I think what I'm going to do is before I get there, I'm going to figure out how to volunteer for the Democratic Party, register voters, something like that. Anyway, if you have any ideas, let me know. Okay, I really am excited about this show. They're really good questions. And, this was sort of rando, I know, but I just am pissed and I'm tired and all the things. Anywho, enjoy the questions and the answers. And always, please just call me, 206-926-1522. Email me, amy@birdsandbeesandkids.com, so we can have more conversations. Okay, any ideas about what I can do in Oklahoma? Please tell me. And if you know anyone who lives there and would like me to stay with them and they're not crazy, let me know that as well. I'm having issues about Airbnb-ing because I like to do that if I'm there for a long time. I don't want to be in a hotel for a really long time. It is complicated. Okay, any help y'all have, thank you very much.
I wanted to ask a question about what your thoughts are on teens and posting sexually provocative pictures or videos of themselves, particularly girls on TikTok or Instagram, but mostly TikTok, I think. And I think it's really interesting. We're living in a really strange time because I've talked to some parents about it, and they seem to justify it in some ways because they see their girls say that they're doing it, they're posting and dressing that way because they're empowering themselves, or they see it as empowering, or they're doing it for themselves, they're not doing it for other people. I just was curious what your thoughts are on that. Maybe you have a past episode and I can just look it up. But I tried to look and I couldn't find anything. So that's a really interesting thing in the whole concept of slut shaming and all of that. It just doesn't resonate with me, and it feels like it's odd overcorrection, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm really curious on your thoughts. Also, I just heard an episode about how you talked about how the term douchebag is really bad. And I get what you're saying. I just want to give another way of thinking about it, which, I'm not married to the term. I don't need to keep saying it, but I think it's interesting because whenever I say the word douchebag, I always think about how douches are stupid. Like, my understanding is that they're not helpful and they just kind of stigmatize women's body parts and how they should smell or not smell. And so whenever I think of a douchebag, I just think of like how stupid they are. And so whenever I say, oh, that person's a douchebag, it's because I'm basically saying like they're stupid. Anyway, it was a funny thing to tell you. Okay, thanks so much. Bye.
I just looked at TikTok for the first time because I try not to be on social media unless I have to because it's a fucking time waster and a soul sucker. Anyway, TikTok's a fucking time waster and a soul sucker. And so there's that. But I think you should just trust your gut. Do you think it's empowering for girls, young women, a little different thing going on there, but like teenagers to be doing sexual stuff, talking about sexual stuff, showing off their parts, being naughty and all that on a public platform like TikTok? I think it's dangerous, mostly because predators and their brains aren't developed, and so they don't quite understand what it is they're doing. So that, but also, I don't want to slut shame them, and I don't want to shame them about their bodies and exploring that side of themselves. So I don't know. Is it empowering? I don't know. I guess kind of, but I think it's more empowering for them to go into that knowing what they're doing, knowing what they're up to, doing it with full consciousness instead of kind of following the pack. One of the things I looked at was a gal who was taking off her, the subject line or whatever the hell it's called, was something about, do I look better without my makeup on? And so she took off one eyelash, and it's this whole build up to her maybe taking her makeup off, and should she or shouldn't she? And who fucking cares? Anyway, clearly I'm not the TikTok audience. Back to the empowerment thing. Sorry, I digress. I think it's more empowering for girls to understand their sexuality, to know that it's totally normal to have sexual feelings and want to look and act sexy, whatever that means to them. Totally normal, typical. We expect that from lots and lots and lots of people. And also, it's important that they understand that when they're doing things like making a TikTok video and putting themselves out there in that way, people are going to make assumptions and judgments about them that are not true. So the empowerment, in my mind, comes from having full consciousness about what they're doing. In the meantime, I don't like it. I don't like that young girls are looking at that, acting like that, thinking that's a thing to do and a way to be, because at the end of the day, it fucks them up. Imagine you're 14 and you are spending hours in your week looking at images of typical beauty ideas or whatever. Hours. It was bad enough that I was looking at my classmates who were prettier than me, right? That was hard enough. Imagine if you're just inundated with that. And I don't need to tell you, you know all the studies. Anxiety is off the charts for people with vulvas. It is off the charts for the other guys, the people with penises too, but off the charts, anxiety and depression. And if you look at the little studies, I will stick it in the show notes, that show what happened with anxiety and depression, starting with the stupid Facebook. It increased like crazy. And the great equalizer is social media. Anyway, in a perfect world, they wouldn't be on it at all. In a perfect world, you wouldn't be on it at all. I'm reading a really great book called The Power of Fun. It was written by the woman who wrote How to Break Up with Your Phone. I highly recommend it. It is fucking us up, and it's fucking our kids up. And so if you can find a way to rein it in with your kids, I would highly recommend you do that. And if you can't, and they're just using it, then I would talk with them a lot about it. Anyway, I kind of went on a rant there, but yeah, I don't like TikTok. What a waste of time. There's a better stuff for us to be doing. And if there's this direct link between anxiety and depression and self-esteem and people with vaginas and vulvas and boobies, that's a problem. So empowering at what cost? Okay, all done with that. Okay, the douchebag thing. I kind of like that. It never occurred to me to flip it around. And yeah, douching is stupid. It is bad for your body. So when you say douchebag, I can kind of get on board with that it is really like this is a stupid thing to do. So when we call someone a douchebag, you're calling them stupid. But still, at the end of the day, people who douche have vaginas. And it's still gendered for me. And I know anal douching, whatever. Dan Savage and I had a moment about this one time. And we had a little argument because he thinks of anal douching. I think of vaginal douching. So if it's anal douching, it's, gender neutral. So it's not a bad thing. But I know Dan Savage thinks of anal douching. I don't. I don't think you do either. Anyway, it's gendered. It's not a good thing. And so just don't fucking say it. Say something that is gender neutral. Everyone has an asshole. Shitwipe, asshole, fuckhead, any number of things. Okay, I'm done now. Little ranty there. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have a thought about the empowering thing, please call me. If you have any thoughts, you can call me. I'm the only one that really gets to be an asshole on the show, so I won't play your message if you're an asshole, but I'd love your thoughts. So yeah, please call in. And of course, questions, right? Can't do the show without your questions. You can email me, amy@birdsandbeesandkids.com, but it's so much more engaging to hear your beautiful, beautiful voices. Anyway, long story short, get off the fucking social media and read The Power of Fun. It is really good. It will change your mind. It might change your life. It could change your kid's life. Okay, link in the show notes.
Hi, Amy. I am a big fan of your show, and the question I have is, I guess, a bit hypothetical. When I was growing up, I didn't know any kids who were out as gay or lesbian or any of the LGBTQ. Obviously, of course, some of them came out later, but at that time they weren't out yet. But I always wondered, because the unspoken rule, at least in my house and in my friend group, was that girls could only have sleepovers with other girls and boys could only have sleepovers with other boys. And even at the time, I always wondered, well, what about the gay kids? How does that work? Can they have sleepovers or not have sleepovers? How does that work? So fast forward to now, I have a 12-year-old son who has friends who are, all different letters of the LGBTQ community, as well as friends who, are presumably heterosexual or haven't come out yet. And so I'm curious how to navigate sleepovers with different orientations and what the guidelines and rules are about that, or could or should be about that. Trying to think this out in my head before we get to that stage of sleepovers. Thank you so much.
I believe I've discussed sleepovers in the past, episode something. First of all, let's just talk about sleepovers. Did you go on a sleepover when you were a kid? Did you ever go on a sleepover when you were in middle school? Harken back. Think about the things that went down at your sleepover. And I'm thinking about all kinds of things. There was the drinking and the smoking and the messing around with each other just in terms of teasing and that kind of thing. Lots of sleeping happened. No. The Playboy magazines and that kind of stuff came out. All right, remember that? Now, pretend you're, your child's age, and imagine you have all the things available that your child has. And now, let's have a sleepover. No, does not sound like a good idea. Sleepovers cause trouble. So here are my general sleepover rules, and you can do what you will, and you can pretend like shit like this isn't going to happen to your kid, just like, well, our parents were clueless, so that's a different thing entirely. General rules. First of all, do half sleepovers, especially when your kids are little. They can stay late until 11, and then you go and pick them up. Same with your older people. Just say, our family rule is this. I'll pick you up at midnight, and that's just the way we roll. And your kid will be like, oh, you're, 10 parts evil. And just say, throw me under the bus, man. And frankly, I think a lot of kids like not having to stay over. Oh, also, impacting you. They're sort of horrid when they don't have a lot of sleep, right? Have you been there? You know who I'm talking about? Those evil little children, or children who become evil due to lack of sleep. So that's a couple things you can do. Limit the sleepovers to just really good friends. Just a couple of friends. That's what we did with Milo. I know shenanigans happened because, adolescence and whatnot. So those are my general sleepover rules. As for your question about queer kids and sleeping over, same thing. Shenanigans, shit can happen. Just because a kid is gay or queer, it doesn't mean they're going to be making moves on your child or a not queer kid or whatever. So there might be some kind of homophobic thing going on. I'm not just saying this about you per se. I'm just saying it kind of in general. So some kind of weirdo hangover of homophobia. So I would not really worry about it. Last I checked, there are plenty of kids who are same gender, different gender, just friends that have sleepovers. Lots of boys and girls sleep over. And so, you just need to decide. And, always it just comes back to consent and talking openly about sexuality and, making sure everybody understands how to be safe and that kind of thing. At the end of the day, you get to decide what makes sense for you and your family, but I really wouldn't worry too much about having queer kids sleep over with not queer kids and vice versa and all the gender business. I think it's probably just fine. And I didn't do any research, but I suspect in countries like the Netherlands, they don't give two fucks about this. And it's not a problem. So your family, your choice. Sleepovers are shitty. You might have just heard my kitten meow. We'll just leave Theo in. All right. See you later. That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's been calling in. The number's 206-926-1522, so please leave me a message if you have a question or a tale from the trenches. And thank you to Melanie Smith, my producer, and to Rolf, who wrote the Birds and Bees and Kids theme song.